Am I okay? I think I'm okay. Okay. What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we are reacting to film theorists in the Avatar cycle. Okay. I assume it's talking about basically ending the entire Avatar cycle. Basically, you're the last Avatar, and after you, there won't be any Avatars. That's what I believe would happen. I don't know for sure, but let's just watch it. Let's go.
Film, food. Long ago, the four
By
channels.
the way, I'm pretty sure it's either going to be history, space, or perhaps something like BuzzFeed Unsolved, where they talk about unsolved mysteries. You know what? Mysteries, basically unsolved mysteries, general, right? It doesn't necessarily must be food about food, video game, movie, basically stuff like that. Murder case, stuff like that. That basically were unsolved. I mean, that would be pretty cool. Anyways, let's continue.
Live together in harmony, but then everything changed when the YouTube algorithm attacked. Only MatPat, master of all four theories, could bring balance to the channels. But when YouTube needed him most, he vanished. But I believe that MatPat can save the world.
Matthew Patrick.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's here to reveal your secret power, subscription bending. Try it out. Click the button below the video to transform it. Now, I don't often call a lot of things perfect. Almost anything can be improved upon in one way or another, but up there with Chrono Trigger, The Lord of the Rings, and the sweet, delicious burn of Diet Coke is Avatar: The Last Airbender. If ever there was a perfect animated series, it might just be Avatar. In case you need a bit of a refresher, in the world of Avatar, people live in one of four nations, each built around one of the four traditional elements. You have the water tribes at the North and South Poles, the vast Earth Kingdom that covers most of the world's landmass, the industrious and aggressive Fire Nation, and the elusive, flighty, air nomad monks. Some people are born with the ability to bend one of these four elements, but only one person can master all four of them. That one person is known as the Avatar, and is tasked with keeping the world in balance. As the very first Avatar, Juan explains,
"This is my mission, to use Rava's light spirit to guide the world toward peace."
each Avatar is born into a cycle, water to earth to fire to air, so that when the previous Avatar dies, a new one is born in the next nation. And over the course of the various seasons, we watch as this exact cycle plays out. Avatar Kyoshi from the Earth Kingdom gives way to Roku from the Fire Nation, who then dies and opens the door to Aang from the Air Nomads, and finally Avatar Korra from the Water Tribe. It's a great setup that allows for stories and characters outside of the original series to be explored, expanding the world even further. I mean, that's basically what happened with the sequel series, The Legend of Korra, and it appears to be Nickelodeon's strategy with the franchise moving forward. There have been multiple novels and comic books dedicated to other avatars and supporting characters. They've even established an entire production studio devoted to more Avatar content. Rumor has it that a bunch of this new stuff is going to focus on different avatars too. Sure, you'll have the OGs Aang and Korra, as well as the fan favorite Kyoshi, but also the next Avatar that we haven't even met yet. There's even a live-action Netflix series on the way. Here's hoping it goes better.
By the way, a long time ago, I don't know, like 2 years ago, 4 years ago, I heard the theory that the next Avatar will be twins, basically. Basically, like there won't be one; it will be twins. So that's an interesting idea. Basically, one can learn two elements, the other can only learn two, or basically both are avatars. One is evil and one is good. That's actually can be an interesting concept for Avatar. I would really love to see something like that. That'd be interesting.
Than the last one.
He was bending tiny stones at us from behind a tree. It really hurt.
Anyway, in my excitement for new Avatar content, I decided to go rewatch the series and catch up on a bunch of the spin-off stories that they've released over the years. And you know what, theorists? The more and more I look, the more and more I realize that having an Avatar sucks. This world is so much worse because of the Avatar cycle. When you really break down what each Avatar does during their life and how it compares to what each Avatar is supposed to be doing, you'll realize that each and every one of them has largely failed. Enough so that you kind of gotta ask, is it even worth having an avatar at all? Hop aboard your flying bison and pour out some cactus juice, loyal theorists. I'm about to bend your ear over this broken ancient tradition. Let's start by setting our ground rules, shall we? Remember, the whole thing about the Avatar is that their main goal is to keep the world in balance, both physically and spiritually. What exactly that means could be up for debate, but the way I see it, an Avatar's duties largely break down into 4 main tasks. 1, helping keep international peace between the 4 nations. 2, helping keep internal peace within each of those nations. 3, protecting innocent people and bringing justice to the unjust. And 4, bridging the gap between the human world and the spirit world. So let's just start at the beginning of our list. One of the main parts of an Avatar's duty is to help keep international peace between the 4 nations, and admittedly, some of them are good at it. For instance, we see that Aang has helped to set up an international government to help the 4 nations stay at peace with each other. But literally from the opening seconds of the show, we know that at least one Avatar had a major oopsie in this field.
The 4 nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
The whole premise of the entire franchise starts with a giant international war, and it all happened because of the failure of the Avatars. On one hand, we could blame Aang, who ran away from his duties, which in turn opened up a power vacuum that allowed the 100-year...
I mean, he was a kid. He was like a 10-year-old kid. Like, come on. I don't think that's a valid criticism. Say that Aang ran away. He ran away because he didn't want to be Avatar. Not because he was a bad Avatar. He didn't want to be Avatar in the first place. So I don't think calling Aang bad Avatar because he ran away as a criticism. Because to be honest with you, if it was me, I'd have done the same thing. Fuck being Avatar.
War to begin, but he was also literally 12 years old at the time, so it's kinda hard to fault him for that one. Instead, the true failure falls to Aang's predecessor, Avatar Roku. Roku was childhood friends with Fire Lord Sozin, the Fire Lord who started the war. And what's worse, Roku knew that Sozin wanted to conquer these other nations.
I've been thinking, we should share this prosperity with the rest of the world. In our hands is the most successful empire in history. It's time we expanded it.
So what did Roku do to stop it? He basically gave Sozin a slap on the wrist and a stern talking to. By his own admission, Roku's indecisiveness, and let's be honest, favoritism to his friend and home nation, was a huge weakness which ultimately led to tons of unnecessary death.
In my life, I tried to be disciplined and show restraint, but it backfired. If I had been more decisive and acted sooner, I could have stopped Sozin and stopped the war before it started.
Instead, his actions led to Sozin's betrayal, his own death, and a war that lasted generations. His failure led to the complete annihilation of the Air Nation, as well as all the loss of life that comes with a war of conquest. It's not exactly gonna be making Watch Mojo's top 10 list of moments that brought balance to the world. And here's the thing, we don't have to look at Roku or Aang to see the Avatar's failures here.
Wait, what? Watch Mojo did that? Okay, I'm pretty sure that's fake. I'm pretty sure that's fake.
Watch Mojo's top 10 list of moments that brought balance to the world. And here's the thing, we don't have to look at Roku or Aang to see the Avatar's failures here. In the prequel novels, we learned that Avatar Zito, the Fire Nation Avatar before Roku, was born into a time of great strife for the nation. And instead of working internationally like most other Avatars, Zito decided to focus on the domestic politics, becoming a bureaucrat within the Fire Nation to help his people. Though he helped shepherd the Fire Nation back to prosperity, he did this at the expense of all the other nations. This eventually led to an event known as the Platinum Affair shortly after his death, which saw the Fire Nation and Water Tribes secretly backing a challenger to the Earth Kingdom throne. When this was discovered, it led to all 3 nations becoming incredibly isolationist. Because of this, Zito's immediate successor, the air nomad Avatar Yang Chen, would look back on Zito's legacy as messy. So as you can already start to see, having one person solely responsible for policing the entire bending world is like an impossible task. Time is going to be the Avatar's most limited resource, and the decisions that they make on how to spend that time inevitably means that they're going to have to sacrifice one major part of their duty. Obviously for Zito, focusing all of his attention on bringing prosperity to the Fire Nation meant that he let conflict arise within other kingdoms with the Platinum Affair. We see a similar situation arise in the Avatar Kyoshi books. The Avatar before her had a singular focus on dealing with the spiritual duties of the role. This meant that he neglected his responsibilities as a politician. His neglect of the physical world allowed allowed the Earth Kingdom to become destabilized by infighting, and Kyoshi was basically forced to spend her entire life cleaning up that mess. But don't feel too bad for her, she caused even more problems than she solved. Case in point, Qin the Conqueror. Now, this guy was a warlord standing up against a corrupted king. That said, Qin was far from a hero. As Kyoshi herself says,
a horrible tyrant. Qin was expanding his army to all corners of the continent.
This seems like the exact sort of situation where an avatar should stand up and help make peace, right? A rebellion is threatening to destabilize an entire kingdom, and both sides are led by awful people. The keeper of peace and balance should probably be looking into solving this issue. Even Kyoshi herself says,
Qin the Conqueror threatened to throw the world out of balance.
There's that word, balance. So what did Kyoshi do to stop Qin? Nothing. Literally nothing. Qin was able to conquer almost the entire continent. Kyoshi only decided to step in when he showed up at her doorstep to take over the peninsula that she called home.
I warned him that I would not sit passively while he took our home.
Yeah, sure, Kyoshi. Looks like you were getting right to that. So now that Qin is literally right in front of her, you would think that this is a good opportunity to try and stop his conquest and restore balance to the Earth Kingdom. Nope! Kyoshi uses her power to disconnect the peninsula from the mainland and then proceeds to yeet it out into the middle of the ocean. Seriously, in what's arguably the most impressive display for an avatar's powers that we see throughout the entire franchise, all Kyoshi does is pull a giant I'ma head out. Qin's conquest was only stopped because he was too stubborn to get out of Kyoshi's way, falling to his death as Kyoshi Island was being formed.
But I assure you, I would have done whatever it took to stop Qin.
Really, Kyoshi? Sure looks like you got some massive revisionist history going on there because you didn't do a gosh darn thing in the months leading up to him coming to your peninsula. And that philosophy runs deep in the village that Kyoshi leaves behind. Towards the beginning of The Last Airbender, Team Avatar lands on Kyoshi Island, where the guiding wisdom of all the Kyoshi stands is, yeah, it's not my problem.
Kyoshi stayed out of the war so far, and we intend to keep it that way.
Heck, even the Earth Kingdom capital's catchphrase, "There's no war in Ba Sing Se," follows the same attitude. Ignore the problem, deny, close your eyes, and it just goes away. Admittedly, things seem to go much better under Roku's tenure, and after Aang ends the 100-Year War, things again seem to go smoothly. But under Korra, there's civil conflict after civil conflict. She was Avatar during the Water Tribe Civil War. Under her watch, the Red Lotus assassinates the Earth Queen, and in the aftermath, Korra's inaction due to injury and PTSD lets Kuvira seize control of a great deal of the Earth Kingdom. Not a great track record in a long sequence of avatars dropping the ball. So now let's move on to our next criteria: protecting the innocent and bringing justice to the unjust. This one's a bit harder to judge because we don't see a lot of the day-to-day lives of each avatar. And while yeah, we do see some heroic moments like Aang fighting Akon and Korra chasing down Bender criminals in the streets of Republic City, there's a rotten core here that starts to peek through the deeper we get into the franchise. Most of the Legend of Korra's plot revolves around the idea of justice and what it takes to defend everyone. Korra's first major adversary, Amon, is the leader of a group called the Equalists, who are all about leveling the playing field between benders and non-benders by taking away the ability to bend. Sound insane? It is, but the movement is shown to resonate with a lot of Republic City's citizens. Life in the world of Avatar can be incredibly hard for non-benders, even in the new supposedly harmonious society that Aang created. If you're a bender, you have easy access to jobs. Power plants use firebenders to operate, trains are powered by earthbenders, and policemen are almost exclusively metal benders. Benders also have a much easier time committing acts of violence, as we're frequently shown groups of violent benders like the Triple Threat Triad, the Red Lotus, heck, even the Republic City Police, who treat the use of force like it's second nature. Non-benders are overlooked, they're ignored, they're frequently threatened. In one particular scene, Republic City's metal-bending police force hurt a group of non-benders like cattle, using force to break up a non-violent protest. These people are targeted because the police force has turned off the power to their homes, and they're peacefully resisting being profiled as members of Amon's uprising just because they aren't benders. A woman in the crowd makes a desperate plea for Korra's help, saying,
"Please help us. You're our avatar too."
And Korra does help, kinda. Unfortunately for the common people, Korra considers the issue resolved after she outs Amon as a bender and a fraud, effectively derailing a movement that began and grew thanks to a genuine concern from a huge portion of Republic City's non-bending population. So that one doesn't look all that great for Korra. But when you think about it, this is Aang's city. He created the system that Korra inherited. In fact, this goes well beyond just Korra and Aang. The imbalance between benders and non-benders is a failure of every avatar before them who popped up or exploited the same system. Which brings us back to Kyoshi, who honestly might have been the worst of the bunch. See, Kyoshi had herself a rough childhood. She was an orphan working as a servant until it was discovered that she was the Avatar. She later joined a criminal gang that was founded by her parents. And it's not like they suddenly stopped doing crimes after the Avatar joined. Nope, they decided to involve involve Kyoshi in the crimes. And that's not all. Kyoshi's youthful anger heavily informed her way of thinking. Even after learning that she was the Avatar, her thoughts were more centered on revenge than duty. The Rise of Kyoshi states that, quote, her hunger to learn all 4 elements had nothing to do with becoming a fully realized Avatar. Fire, air, and water were simply more weapons she could bring to bear on a single target, end quote. And much later in her life, she was so unbothered by taking a life that she didn't see a difference between accidents and intentional killings.
You didn't really kill Shin. Technically, he fell to his own doom because he was too stubborn to get out of the way.
Personally, I don't really see the difference.
As for protecting the innocent, here again we have some problems. In Shadow of Kyoshi, Kyoshi threatens to crush a mother and her adult son to death with a boulder while trying to squeeze a false confession out of them for something they didn't do. But her single worst decision is revealed in the canonical Flash game Escape from the Spirit World. It's here that Kyoshi confesses to Aang her biggest failure. See, one of the Earth Kings during Kyoshi's life was incredibly unpopular. His leadership was seen as ineffective and corrupt, and it eventually led to a peasant uprising against him. During the riots, the king ordered Kyoshi to put the uprising down, and to her credit, she refused. Instead, she encouraged the king to listen to the grievances of the people and find compromise. Seems pretty good so far, right? But here's the thing. Kyoshi admits that she didn't like the people standing up against the kingdom. In fact, throughout the whole story, Kyoshi seems less concerned about the human rights abuses committed by the king and more concerned that the peasants are destroying historical artifacts and upsetting the stability of the monarchy. So, in exchange for the king listening to his people and ending the riots, Kyoshi agrees to train an elite group of earthbenders for him. They would be, quote, silent, precise, and feared by all. It was a force that would eventually be known as the Dai Li. Yep, you remember those creepy secret police from the animated series? The ones with the rock gloves whose loyal...
So this is how the Dai Li started. Interesting. Okay. By the way, sorry if I'm not talking at all, because like I said, I'm really into this. I'm really enjoying it. I really want to hear what Madpat has to say.
Loyalty could be bought and sold, and who sided with Azula and the Fire Nation during the invasion of Ba Sing Se, they were Kyoshi's idea. She even admits that she regrets not foreseeing the long-term consequences of giving future Earth Kingdom monarchs access to an elite secret police force. But here's the thing, that move didn't make sense even in her time period. This king, the one that was ready to crush his own people, he shouldn't have had access to that secret police force either. Imagine what he would have had him do to the peasants if they were around to begin with. Then again, when you're as powerful as Kyoshi and you treat your powers like a big old hammer, I guess everything looks like a nail. So again, for a lot of the avatars, protecting the innocent and bringing justice to the unjust is just a bust. So that's 3 for 3 where a ton of avatars fail. But what about our 4th criteria here? Bridging the gap and keeping the peace between the human and spirit worlds. This is basically the thing that avatars are supposed to be good at. Surely there isn't a legacy of failure here too? Well, you would think, and then you would be wrong. We hear in the prequel novel dedicated to Avatar Yang Chen that when humans and spirits came into conflict, she would strike bargains that would get the spirits to leave humans alone so long as they took care of the physical world. And of course, humans did not live up to their end of the deal. As a result, spirits wound up committing a lot of violence against humans who broke their oaths. This in turn created a huge mess for the next Avatar, Kuruk, to clean up. We discover in the Kyoshi novels that Avatar Kuruk would end up spending most of his short life fighting the dark spirits empowered by Yang Chen's decisions. Finally, let's skip forward to Avatar Korra, who might just have been the Avatar to fail the most at this one. At the end of The Legend of Korra Season 2, Korra is subdued by her uncle Unalaq, who's merged with the dark spirit Vatu. Unalaq is able to rip the Avatar spirit Rava from Korra's body, severing her connection to the past Avatars forever. Thousands of years worth of knowledge snuffed out in an instant. Additionally, during this battle, we witness a world-shifting event called the Harmonic Convergence. Basically, a portal opens between the spirit and human worlds, allowing people and spirits to pass freely between them. At the end of it, Korra decides to keep the portals to the spirit world open, a decision that reverses the stance of the very first Avatar and fatefully combines the human and spirit worlds. At first glance, it seems brilliant, right? Wouldn't the peaceful coexistence between humans and spirits create a more meaningful bond between them? Well, not necessarily. The unforeseen consequence of these two vastly different worlds colliding is complicated and really doesn't scream balance. First, the overlapping geographies of the world create huge territory issues. Houses in Republic City are overrun by vines, and entire city blocks are destabilized. Doesn't matter if you're a bender or a non-bender. Finding your living room destroyed destroyed and your building about to collapse, it's definitely on the list of top 5 worst breakfast time surprises. And second, harmonic convergence gives Zahir, one of the most dangerous warriors in the world, the power of airbending, which he promptly uses to start assassinating world leaders and throw the world out of balance. I'm gonna chalk that one up as a big oopsie there, Korra. When you stop and look at the totality of what we know about the Avatars, one thing becomes clear time and time again. This is a vicious cycle. Every single one of these Avatars dealt with difficult issues, but their solutions just wound up creating more problems for the immediate successor. Zito focused too much on his own country. Yang Chen has to deal with and break down isolationist policies. Yang Chen helps make peace between the 4 nations, but at the cost of angering the spirits. Well, Kurik has to spend his life battling dark spirits and winds up neglecting the real-world nations. Kurik dies early in battle with spirits, leaving an unstable political situation. Kyoshi creates a secret police to try and paper over the problems of her country. Roku shows favoritism to his home nation. Aang has to deal with a century-long war and the death of his entire people. All of them ignore non-benders. Korra has to deal with the fallout and the equalists. The Avatar cycle is a cycle of violence. It is a broken system. And honestly, that makes perfect sense. Ask yourself, why does the Avatar have to have a monopoly on balance in this world? The very concept of the Avatar is imbalanced. At the end of the day, the Avatars possess the power of a god, literally, a god of light, but they're still only humans. Aang was a 12-year-old kid faced with solving a 100-year-old war. Kyoshi was a poor orphan. Eventually, she's gonna defend her home so it wasn't ripped away again. Roku was friends with Sozin. Of course, he's gonna be slow to action and more lenient in his judgment. One person holding that much power, that much influence, it's a recipe for disaster. I feel like I've heard this somewhere before.
With great power comes great responsibility.
In the end, the really successful Avatars, or maybe the least unsuccessful Avatars, are the ones that don't do it alone. Aang saves the world from Fire Lord Ozai because he trusts his friends to help get the job done. Sokka, Toph, Suki, Zuko, and Katara are all off playing key parts in stopping the Fire Nation, while Aang has his rad Dragon Ball Z fight against Ozai. And those friends are just as essential after the war in helping him restore balance too. His friends help make and keep the international peace all in ways that Aang wouldn't be able to do on his own. It just goes to show that controlling all the elements in this world is meaningless if you don't also control the element of friendship. But hey, if you want more Avatar: The Last Airbender content right now, go check out our previous theory talking about the science of waterbending. Yeah, believe it or not, but what you see Katara and Aang doing in the series isn't that far out of the realm of possibility. Or, if you want something a little different, I actually teamed up with Nickelodeon themselves and did a video breaking down whether or not a creature as big as Appa could actually fly. It's different, but it was a really fun collab with the people who made this show happen in the first place.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching. If you're still watching, by the way. I never thought about it, not gonna lie. Now think about it. Being an Avatar sucks ass, to be honest with you. Either way, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And peace. I'm gonna react to more film theory videos, especially that FNAF timeline, MatPat. I'm waiting.